we also indicated that there are even variations of the walk. So as Brie is going around, she's got Dakar on just a nice relaxed rein. He's able to move at kind of his pace, even though she's somewhat prescribing where he's going to go and what he's going to do.
So I want to point out, though, what a long sweeping stride this mare has, and how she just, as she's walking along on her own, she's pretty much over-tracking by a complete hoof print. See that? And more. Yep. She has a tremendous amount of natural impulsion. And now you also have to just look at Brie, who is a completely connected, schooled rider, and see the amount of movement that Brie is being imported to Brie. Okay? And then you can begin to appreciate why maximum impulsion for every patient might not be appropriate. So, but hopefully we can ask Brie to collect her. So Brie, can you collect her walk and try and reduce down the amount of overtrack, and I'm going to gather her up a little. Okay, so just by making some adjustments, in this case from her back, see what happened to the whole picture, shortened up, and see that Brie's not moving from side to side as much as she was. We've contained the movement, and yet there's still a tremendous amount of energy to the walk. Is that evident?
Yes.
Okay, and you can see how, okay, so now just for fun. Okay, now go ahead and let her go back out to her relaxed, kind of long. Okay, see the difference? Okay, that's training. That's taking the mechanics, the horse has the natural mechanics, and adjusting it incrementally to what you might need. And there's variations within all of that as well. And in this case, Brie's doing this from the top of the horse, but either in lines or, quite frankly, in a horse that's properly trained to lead, you should be able to make those same variations. Okay, if your therapy horse has one speed and one speed only, not so desirable. Okay? So now collect her up again. It was just so effective.
So just as an aside, you saw the change in Brie's body as a result of the horse, but I will also tell you that the way that Brie got the horse to do that had everything to do with what she did with her body. Yeah. So as a rider, now I think our patients aren't going to be doing any of that, but as a rider, it's a back and forth connection between rider and horse. So it's going to be easier for Brie to dampen her movement, but it also is required for her to dampen it in order to create that movement in the horse.
It's very nice.
Anything? Oh, we're walking?
Yeah.
Still walking.
So also notice how Dakar is just going along that line of travel. So if you looked at him or her from above, you would see that her spine from pole to tail is following that circle. So right now Brie's on a roughly, say, 20 meter or so circle. It's helpful to have some sort of way to describe and understand sizes when you're talking to your horse handler. So whether or not that's talking about meters that they use commonly in dressage, or across the arena, or large and small, as long as you both know what that is, then you can ask for it. So let's ask Dakar to do a 10-meter circle. So about half the size of what she was doing, so there needs to be that change of bend, a stronger bend. And then notice too, in Brie, she's needed to also shorten her right side, the inside of the circle, and travel a little bit more with her left seat bone, or the left side, which stays lengthened. And go ahead and circle to the left. As she changes direction, you can just see in the folds of her shirt how Brie's position has to accommodate to that bend. So do another, say, 10 meter or so to the left. And then let's go ahead and set it up to do a figure of 8. So a figure of 8 in the riding world is literally 2 circles connected by a few strides of straight line in the middle. And that number of strides is going to vary depending on the sides of the circle. She's coming straight, she's changed that direction, and then started coming around to the right. And ideally those circles are going to be about the same size in the riding world. We have the luxury of asking for bends, sizes of circles, and the amount of time going straight to accommodate what our patients might need. But that time in the middle just gives our patients a little bit of accommodation to change direction, to change their bend. Now, Brie, if you can, go ahead and do kind of an infinity sign. So you're going to come change direction across the circle. So another option for us would be to have Brie do a half circle, and then instead of finishing the circle, she's going to do a straight line kind of on a diagonal. So we've got quite a lot of time there, and then finish it up with a half circle on the other side. And go ahead and do that back the other way. So when would that be advantageous over the first figure of 8 that you saw?
She needs some more time to adapt to the sharp turn, or it's too sharp of a turn.
Exactly. So did everybody hear that? So that longer time going straight, we still want to work on bends to either direction, but there's a little bit more time in between to accommodate. And we're not spending as much time on the bend. So if it's somebody that can't sustain that all the way around a circle, but we want to start introducing that, we've got that option. Now another way to start thinking about changing bend, let's go ahead and do a serpentine across the arena, but let's just use like 3/4 of the arena. So a serpentine is a series of half circles, again with that straight line in between. As Brie comes around, she's going to do a bend and come across the arena in a straight line. So she's going to head straight for us and then have that half circle before she cuts back across the arena. So Brie, let's do that same thing at a trot. Do the same thing at a trot. Yeah, so she's absorbing a lot. Oh, a lot of movement from him. Her. Okay, so can you see that? And the bend can be as sharp or as large as you feel like your patients can accommodate to. So it might be kind of hard with the poles there, but if you can do a shallow serpentine down the long side. Okay. So another option is to stay with that idea of a serpentine, but instead of having that straight in between, the horse can bend and then bend and then bend. So your patient has to be able to switch pretty quickly back and forth between those bends. But for midline orientation, for weight shifting, for improving that transfer, decreasing processing time, you've got all kinds of things that you can use that with. So Brie did that half circle at the short end of the arena and then a long, long, long straight, but now she's tracking in the other direction. So that's going to be the easiest for your patients to be able to handle as far as changing direction. There's a number of different ways of doing it though, and you can get a little bit more of a challenge by making that turn a little shallower rather than that half circle. So since she wasn't going to be able to hear me, I guess. So a half circle in reverse, or she can actually go
yeah, like that.
Okay.
That's fine.
And coming off the rail and then back towards the rail.
And that's one of those things you have to be kind of specific with your horse handler.
And then reverse, just going straight across and then turning. So the other option is just cutting the arena in half and then changing direction.
It's important to have to know, for your horse handler to know, if you just say go the other way and you leave it to their discretion, you know, you might get a situation where you're just going one way and all of a sudden you do a 180 the other way.
A really tight
very
turn
hard for a
reverse.
patient to accommodate to. So you have to have a kind of even a plan in place for what you want. There has to be a lot of communication between horse handler and her.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times you'll use a half halt before you're going to ask for something else, and it's kind of a, you know, wake up, listen to me, and now I'm going to ask you to do something else. So if you watch Dakar, he just kind of shortens up a little bit, and then Brie will send her off again. Well, surprisingly enough, a half halt can be used for our patients for exactly the same thing.
Typically at the walk.
Yes, thank you. But to sort of get them to co-contract a little bit, to kind of gather up and use their core. It's just kind of a little bit of a stop-start, if you will. And it's also a wonderful way to get their attention. It's something changed. You're walking around and you're kind of just moving along and the air's kind of spacing out, and you throw in that little half halt, and it's just enough to kind of wake them up a little bit. Did you see that? So try it at a walk just to see. A little bit there. Can you get the idea?
It's just a little change in momentum.
And it's just, it's not a biggie. It's not a big deal.
Did you say that was good just to fire up the floor?
You get that little bit of a hesitation. It's just like that. Yeah, just like wake up and that get that co-contraction and kind
It's
of.
also a little bit of a
triggered.
vestibular. It's to kind of help promote some vestibular registration, because you're going along and the system kind of gets complacent that it's in this line of travel, and that half halt's like, whoa, sends that fluid in the inner ear going the other direction just for an instant, and it kind of helps facilitate some vestibular registration. And we have a lot of clients that we see who have underreactive vestibular systems.
So what lead is Dakar on right now? The left. Okay. So Brie is going to take Dakar across and then do what we call a counter canter. And she's still kind of young in her training. So if Brie does not ask her to change, no. Okay, so now she's on what we might call an incorrect lead, because she's turning to the right, but the left leg is leading in the front, yeah? And you can change back. Okay. Now, for her, this is a training tool. This helps to get her more supple and more obedient and a whole variety of things. But it's also an example of, if you're not purposely doing it, that would be an incorrect lead. It's much more difficult for her to go to the right with that left fore leading the way. Can you imagine? Okay. She did that very nicely. Yeah, maybe at the trot. Oh, okay. Okay, so when she was on her left lead here, her body should follow the direction of travel, right? Her spine. But right now Brie is, and on purpose here, asking her to what we call counter bend. So the nose is pointed outward as the rest of the body is going inward. So again, that's a purposeful training tool, but when a horse is doing it like we saw with Hercules yesterday, and doing it because they're not supple or because the handler is not being correct, then you've got a problem with the input that your patients are going to get. Okay? So we want our horses' spines to be nice and supple, but we also want to be very purposeful in what we're asking for as they're going along. You see that? So her front end is actually going in a different direction, and if we were looking from above, she'd basically have a scoliosis. And then if you can bring her up to halt on the center line. Yeah. Okay. Now, so she's still learning.
But actually, this is a great because, of course, Brie can totally compensate for that. But think about if you stop and the horse cocks their foot and your patient's hanging off one side and one hip or whatever. I mean, you can begin to appreciate the importance of having that square halt. It's very disconcerting, I can tell you, when you're on a horse to have them just cock their hip and you're like all of a sudden all up. You know, Brie, would it be a lot? I mean, I don't even know if she could do this. Can she just lengthen her walk even a little bit more? She's kind of doing her own free walk. But can you extend her walk a little and just let them see how much more power there is? Look at that. I mean, you could do so much with that. And it's not, if you're going to have one or two horses in particular, you want to have look at that. Look at what
We're tracking by a hoof in like 4 inches.
Yeah, I mean, that's just awesome. And you can, with training, you could manipulate it even more. So you ideally, when you're in your quest for therapy horses, you want a horse that has maximum range. You know, like as a singer, if you can only sing from here to here, you're not so flexible. But if you can go, if your range is several octaves, you're much more powerful as a singer. Okay, if your range of movement as a horse is more powerful, you're a better therapist. Thanks, Brie.
Thank you.
Thank you.